Hey everybody, welcome back to the Intersect OSO YouTube channel. I am joined by Philip DiSarro once again, and he's going to share with us some additional information on an exciting product that they have working. Philip, take it away.
So this is our plug-and-play smart contract repository. This is the first version, which contains 3 public utility smart contracts, this single asset staking, linear vesting, and direct swapping mechanism. So these were chosen because they were something that we saw frequently built redundantly by a number of the apps throughout the ecosystem. And we wanted to provide a solution so that when the next team comes onto Cardano, they don't need to build their own, and they can use these at zero cost. So the first is single asset staking. We'll take a look at this. It's very common for projects, especially new projects, to have some sort of staking mechanism where you lock a token and you receive, you lock a token for some fixed duration and you receive rewards based on the duration and some APY. You'll see this, for instance, yield farming is one application of this where you'll lock LP tokens and you receive some protocol farming token. Other variants involve, locking a single asset for revenue share. For instance, if you have a protocol that some percentage of the fees go to the token holders, then this is typically done through a staking mechanism. And this can be used for any of those aforementioned applications. All the contract work and off-chain work is done, so you can really just drop this in to any application without worrying about that. We have sort of pretty extensive documentation on how to deploy these scripts, how to interact with them, how to use this, how to deploy the contracts and use the off-chain frameworks. And in fact, a lot of the time people struggle, especially early on, with infrastructure in Cardano because it can be quite complex. So you can opt to use Block Frost, for instance. That's one solution. Alternatively, you can run your own infrastructure, which again can be difficult, especially if you're new to the ecosystem. So we provided this Demeter solution where you can launch the project through Demeter, which is TX Pipe's hosting solution that allows you to get started working on your application without worrying about infrastructure. So yeah, it's a one-click deployment, and then you don't have to worry about the hassle of doing any of that setup. So if you're new and you just want to test this out, I would say this is probably the best way to do that. There are 2 repositories for each solution. So for single asset staking, there's this linear vesting. There's this linear vesting contract repository, and then there's also the linear vesting off-chain repository. So yeah, dApps and Cardano are typically split between 2 components: the on-chain component, which is the smart contracts, and the off-chain component, which is how you interact with those smart contracts. And so we've split those semantically into different projects on GitHub. It has documentation for how to deploy, how to build, and it should be relatively simple. We even have a video or a GIF that you can see the exact commands and the results, and this should be mimicked on your local machine. If you have any questions on how to interact with this, you can reach out to us on our Discord, the Anastasia Labs Discord, or you can message me on Twitter or through our email, info@anastasialabs.com, and we'll be happy to help. A number of projects are already relying on these throughout the ecosystem. So single asset staking, for instance, we have documentation, which is technical documentation, which is a high-level overview of the architecture. But if you're just looking to use this and you're not so much interested in the technical details, then what you'll need is the off-chain interactions, which are described here under details. First, you would run build scripts, then deploy scripts, and you can create the configuration with your own values using this create configuration file that you would execute. Inside the repository, there's a JSON folder, and the documentation explains that for your use case, the only thing you'll need to change is this JSON folder. You'll have to put in your own custom values for the application that you want to use this for. So, for instance, if your token is called foo token, then you'd need to make the values here accurately represent that. And likewise for, what do they receive as a reward for staking that? It might be the same token or a different token. You need to reflect that in the configuration. This details how to initialize the staking mechanism. And again, it's as simple as just running this in its staking. And then finally, so all these above were essentially setup work that needs to be done by the operator. So that would be the project that wants to implement this, that wants to actually take advantage of this and use single asset staking on their own website. These are what needs to be done by the users. So this would be the users who are interacting with your application. This insert node, modify node, and remove node, and we provide, basically you would just plug these into buttons on your website. So for instance, one button might be stake, one button might be modify your stake, and one button might be unstake. And yeah, then when the user clicks those buttons, you just run these, and that should cover it. And then the last thing, which again needs to be done by the operator, so the project, is process rewards, which is what distributes rewards to users interacting with this product. And then, yeah, after you process rewards, which should be done regularly or at whatever cadence makes sense for your use case, then users can come back and claim their rewards using this reclaim reward function, which is equivalent to the remove function. Again, this would just be a button on your website which calls this. There's a lot of documentation, and it can be quite technical. So if you have any questions, of course, the best thing to do is just reach out. The linear vesting and the direct offer are much simpler. The linear vesting only has a very small number of commands. It has you initialize the vesting, you can modify the vesting, and you can collect your vesting rewards. In fact, I think this is the most popular public utility that we have. It's used by out of any of our releases, it's used by the most projects throughout the ecosystem. And the purpose of this is to facilitate trustless vesting. So you don't have to worry about custodying tokens, and you don't have to worry about team members dumping tokens before they're supposed to be allowed to. The vesting schedule that you lock in here is enforced by the blockchain, and that means that if you use this and you advertise that you use this to the public, then you can gain a large degree of trust in that the public knows for a fact that these tokens won't be released until the date specified here, and they can't be dumped, for instance, on the community during that time. And again, this is a simple SDK where you just plug these functions into buttons on a website, and there you go. You have your vesting application. And the last one is the direct offer. Again, this is a simple one. The interactions you have is to create an offer, to accept an offer, and to cancel an offer. And these endpoints are provided via this SDK, and you just you have a website, you drag the SDK call into the button, and this should do all the work for you. The only thing you have to do is put in your own configuration setting, and this describes where to modify the configuration file and the values that you should put there. Hopefully this makes sense.
It looks like a lot of the information that you have is out here and available. That's for sure. You mentioned a few things about adding in their own configuration here. Can you talk us to? Are there any limits on the customization for their configuration?
Yeah, so it depends on the contract. Generally, they're quite flexible. So for instance, the linear vesting, these are the values that you would configure. You can configure the beneficiary, so the address that's to receive the vesting. You can configure the asset that's being vested. You can configure the total vesting quantity, when the vesting period should start, when it should end, when the first unlock is possible, and the total number of vesting installments. So this is a linear vesting schedule, which means you can't have some sort of you can't customize this to have some sort of dynamic release schedule where like you release more tokens at the beginning or at the end, or weighted in some way. This is specifically for instance, you want to release X tokens per month, or something like that. Except what's configurable is per X amount of time, right? So you release X tokens per Y amount of time, in Z number of installments. Those are the values you can configure. If there's interest in having some sort of configurable function so that it's not just linear, then that's something that we could certainly add. And likewise, you can see what's configurable from the others by the configuration files in each one. For instance, direct swap, the assets being swapped are configurable. The mechanism, though, for instance, this is like a peer-to-peer swapping, it isn't configurable, so you can't just change it to an AMM swap or something like that. And the parties, obviously, that are swapping are configurable. And then for the single asset staking, this one has the largest number of configuration settings. The duration of the staking period, the reward tokens, the staking token, all of these things are configurable. And in fact, this one can be, it doesn't have to be linear staking, it can be dynamic, which is nice because it basically covers every single use case you would imagine for staking tokens. You can decide to have a fixed APY or a dynamic APY based on fees or based on whatever you'd want.
Well, thank you for sharing some more on that. I think I've got one other question. It's kind of two questions into one. If maybe you could go into a little bit of the reliability of the protocol here, of the foundation, as well as any type of security that we have set up for, or that you have set up for this. Excuse me.
Sure. So we've tried to get as much external eyes on these protocols as possible. And because a number of projects throughout the ecosystem are using them, we've reached out and made sure these teams have gone through the contracts and make sure they're sound. Obviously, we're also an auditing firm. In fact, that's our main the main work we do throughout the ecosystem. So we've thoroughly reviewed this code. But because it's something we wrote, it wouldn't make sense for us to, publish an audit certificate and say we audited this. The security mechanisms should guarantee that, given correct deployment, user funds should be secure. In fact, linear vesting, we've had externally audited. Single asset staking is a minimum deviation fork of protocol discovery, which has been externally audited. And the direct the direct offer is used by a number of projects, hasn't been externally audited, but it's been independently reviewed by some of the best developers there at the ecosystem. So again, I would advise that everyone always check everything they're using, but all standard practices with regard to smart contract security have been adhered to in the development of these.
Well, it looks like the right things are going on, and definitely some great advice to encourage each independent or group rather of developers to ensure that their things are aligned. I'll leave it open to you for anything else you may want to say for this product or product, including any potential future plans for development, feature enhancements, anything of that nature.
Yep, of course. So we plan to expand this repository with a number of other plug-and-play smart contracts based on public demand, what other projects would want to see in here, and what would help save the most development time and money throughout the ecosystem. So we really want to make sure that if something is being independently developed by 10 projects, then we get it in this repository so that we can save everyone a ton of time and money and the hassle of maintaining these things. On the second note, I know the documentation, I think I said this before, is quite technical. If anyone has trouble using these and goes through the documentation, it'd be very helpful for you to reach out and explain, how we could help you get over that hurdle and how we can better document these for use. Because we want to make sure that all the documentation here is comprehensive enough that if you read it from start to finish, you don't have any problem deploying this and interacting with it and getting it into your application on mainnet.
Great, thank you for sharing. We'll be going through some additional projects and products, not only for Anastasia Labs, but also some other organizations as time moves along. So if there is a project or product that you have or that you're passionate about, definitely make sure that you let us know. Give us some feedback here, like, comment, subscribe on how we're doing, and look out for some more of this here as it relates to the project support services that we'll be rolling out as we get closer to the end of the year. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a great day.
Have a nice one, you guys.